Two things. If you're spending more money than you're making, you're going to hit the ground. If you are not pricing jobs appropriately and profitably, you're going to hit the ground. I've seen guys do $1.62 million businesses, and the thing is a shambles because their overhead or their fixed expense is too much. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. My name's Max. Great to have you with me. If you are a long-time listener, I appreciate you tuning in again. If you're visiting us for the first time, welcome, and I trust it brings you some value. Right, quick bit of housekeeping, like and subscribe, leave a comment, all that sort of good stuff. If you're feeling generous, then I'd love you to leave a bit of review as it relates to the podcast. And guys and gals, be sure to share the podcast. If you know another general contractor, it would be a great opportunity to put some good vibes out into the world, because hopefully it is bringing you some value as well. Don't forget the Business for Builders VIP Facebook group. Answer the 3 questions. If you're a good sort, you're in. Good place for some community collaboration and some camaraderie as well. Slowly building up a group there, which is pretty exciting stuff. So if you don't know, shoot across to TikTok. There's some fun stuff going on over there. Don't know if you know that, but just a quick heads up. So be sure, if you've got any questions about anything on the show, Max at elitebusinessadvisory.com. The email should be in the show notes. And if you've got any specific questions about your business, great. I'd love to answer them. Don't forget, Elite Business Advisory. I'm the founder of that organization. And, we basically focus on customized coaching for contractors. So if you want to know a bit about that, get across, book a consultation. If you can't find a spot that suits you, hit me up on email, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com, and I will make a spot for you, and we'll catch up and do a quick strategy session around you and your business going forward. Right. We are into part 2, or I won't call it episode number 2 because we're actually episode 182. But this is part 2 of a 3-part series to do with key metrics. Okay, if you're not familiar with the term, really, essentially the key metrics are very much like the dashboard of your business. And if you don't pay attention to the metrics, or the telemetry, or what your dashboard is telling you, you could end up flying that aeroplane into a mountain, or losing altitude, worse still, and crashing the thing. So, it's important that if we, like in the last episode, we talked about conversion rates and our overall revenue target and what sort of inquiry forecast build value that we need. Numbers of leads was important. And then we're just monitoring, the numbers of the dollars worth of contracts that are coming in this month, so that we know in 3 months we're going to have something to invoice for, because there's work getting done. So all of these factors right across the board, and I gave a pretty extensive intro last episode. So if you haven't listened to that, shoot back to episode 181 and, get the full overview there. Right, so I just alluded to the contracts dollars signed per month. That's important, gives us a bit of an idea. And then the next column, because I've got this key metrics spreadsheet that we use, the next column is just contract dollar value signed, per it's a cumulative rolling number that every time you make a data entry in the column before, it'll then give us a rolling number as to what where we're up to. So if our target is $4 million a year, like we've used for the example last episode, then we want to make sure that we are hitting that target now, going forward to that $4 million target. Now, we know that between the 15th of December and the 15th of January, or maybe the end of January, things get a little bit slow. And so in some cases, we may need to do above average per month to ensure that we do close enough deals before we shut down for Christmas. And so, we may want to take, the number and add a little bit on there and divide the whole revenue target by 11, more so than 12, just to make sure that we do give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. So we want to hit that, set the bar a little higher, and hopefully that'll get us over the line. Right. So I'm going to run through another, I just talked about contract values signed per year. That's a rolling number. We won't dive on that one. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more columns we're going to quickly talk about. The first one being an average contract value. Guys and girls, I think, we've got to know, I've got guys who are winning $500,000 deals, and I've got guys that are concerned about the stress of running a business that does $500,000 in a year. Now, this is why more than once on this show I've said, look, I can give you very broad strokes, broad, information, very macro, and you can kind of hopefully, transpose that or convert that into your psyche and your business to help you. But more often than not, I deal with a lot of operators that are at both ends of that spectrum, whereby you've got, someone that's going, hey, I've just gotten started, doing $500,000 a year would be amazing. And then I've got another guy that wants to go to 3 million. So, it's got a lot to do with the human first, because I was just chatting with my business partner in a board meeting last night. And, we talked about how, for us to build Smith & Sons brand here in Canada, the guys and gals that we recruit as our franchise partners, they actually have to be comfortable with a certain or a minimal amount of risk. And so we ask guys and gals that you've got to be wanting to do a business of $1 million minimum consistently going forward. And so there is a few, there can be some fear and trepidation that goes along with that. And I'm not saying that they've got to have a business already doing $1 million a year, although that would be a good place to start. But really, you want to strive to be able to do, that sort of, 7 figures plus. That's really what it comes down to. So, I think too often we look at the number or the metric and then we don't think about the human. And I would urge you to think about the human and really don't set a goal in business or professionally that is going to be out of alignment with you personally and your personal goals. But you need that. You need to be able to go, right, this is my revenue target. I believe I can do 1.5, and that will serve me well in my personal life. Okay, because if you don't get those in alignment, it becomes very much a very unhappy place for you, the operator. So getting back to the average contract value, that helps me calculate, because I've had a misalignment in the max. I can only handle jobs up to $50,000, but I still want to do 1.25 million or 1.5 million. Well, if your conversion rate is 20%, there's X amount of deals that need to come into your funnel, into your ecosystem, so that you win the amount of work. And my friend, it's probably not going to be done with $50,000 jobs if that was your maximum limit. Does that make sense? So when you're considering a revenue goal, you've got to look at what is your average contract. And you go, Max, I've got no clue what my average contract value is, right? Whereas I can tell you for the year of 2023, our average contract value was around about $50,000. So, I think for renovators and remodels, I've seen, jobs, I've seen renovations up to 675 is one that comes to mind. And yet I've seen, jobs, as small as fence jobs, just because it's a service product. You might have heard that term, where it's a recurring customer and they ring you back and say, hey, I know you did my $75,000 kitchen, but I need some cedar fence done. Can you do that for me? And it's a $4,000 job. So what that does is it brings down our average, right? When there's nothing wrong with that, because we're talking about building a reputation. Referrals are a great source, for well-paying, high-performance projects that are profitable. And so you do go and do that service-type product as well. So, but if you haven't got the average contract value, you might be surprised. And all you'd have to do last year is look at how many contracts you signed, or look at the cumulative total of the sales that you did, and basically divide the number of contracts that you signed. That will give you an average contract value, not a big deal. So, right. So that's the average contract value. Then the next column is contracts to be signed in the next 90 days. So this is now us forecasting the performance of the business. So we've got a couple of columns ago, we've got the contract numbers that we've signed this month. But at the same time, let's say if we were in January, go, right, I signed $50,000 worth of contracts, in January. But what we've done at the same time or simultaneously is we've been working on 4 or 5 deals. And out of that, we might have one deal for $100,000. You go, you know what? In the next 90 days, I think I'm going to sign $100,000. Okay. And so what we're starting to look at is we're monitoring the performance, because we're creating a level of urgency inside of our activity, so that we're not just flying blind. Okay. You know what the 3 things are that is required by a pilot in the event of an emergency? They need 3 things. They need airspeed to make sure that they've got the appropriate amount of lift. They need altitude, okay, because without altitudes, planes break. And the third thing they need is a good idea. So I had a pilot mate of mine who was a WestJet pilot, who is still a WestJet pilot, and he shared that funny joke with me. So, guys, it's ironic because in our business, when a lot of the time we are flying blind, which means we can't see the horizon, it's dark outside, so we can't see landmarks, and what we have to rely on is our dashboard. And what I'm sharing with you right now, I'm in the middle of the dashboard that we use to ensure that our construction plane is level. It has a good attitude, so we're not flying with the nose up or the nose down. We're understanding what our altitude is, and normally our altitude is our cash at bank. Our wind speed is normally the amount of leads that are coming in, because we need that to keep the altitude, because eventually if we don't have wind speed, we lose altitude because our fixed expenses take the money away very quickly. And so there's all of these. I like the aircraft analogy. I like the pilot analogy because they do exactly that. They rely on their telemetry and their instrumentation and their dashboard to let them know how that aircraft is going, and is it in a good position? Is it healthy? Is it on track? That sort of thing. So more reason why we should be tracking the key metrics within our business. So using that 90-day forecast is a great way to give you the sleep at night factor. So you go, okay, if I sign 100K this month and 100K the next month, and maybe we get 10 months of that, well, that's $1 million worth of revenue. That's not a bad business. Now, then we could, my old man used to say, it's not the amount of money that you make, it's the amount of money that you keep. So you might do $1 million worth of sales. Two things. If you're spending more money than you're making, you're going to hit the ground. If you are not pricing jobs appropriately and profitably, you're going to hit the ground. So understand that, just because you do a good revenue, I've seen guys do $1.62 million businesses, and the thing is a shambles because their overhead or their fixed expense is too much. So just don't get too high on one column supply. Make sure you're assessing the business fairly equally, and that you're taking into consideration all of these things. It's no good having really good wind speed going forward if you've got no altitude, okay? You kind of need both. It's not or, it's and, okay? So that forecasting tool is a good thing for you to think about and to make those forecasts, because what happens is in 90 days, I want to hit that. So in my forecast column in January, I want to show that in April, the forecast that I made in January, I actually ticked that box in April. And that starts to reveal to me as your business coach, let's say, that you have a really good handle on what it feels like when you're working with clients, and who's going to go over and who are just tire kickers, thumb suckers, wood ducks, pretenders, okay? We want to find and really separate the players from the pretenders, because the players are the guys and gals and the clients that are ready to buy, and that's what we need. Right, so the other number that we need to just install here is the numbers of projects year to date. So by doing that, we need to know the numbers of projects, because that helps us calculate our average contract value off the overall contract total combined. So that's not a super tricky one. Every time you sign a contract, you just put one in there and make a note saying, hey, this is for XYZ street in XYZ town, bang. And it was, a $100,000 contract. Now, along with that, numbers of projects divided by your numbers of leads times 100 will then give you your conversion rate. So, if you do get 5 leads in January and you converted 20%, or you sold one job out of the 5 for the month of January, that would then give you that 20% conversion rate. If you've got 2 leads and you converted one, that would give you a 50% conversion rate. So, there's a lot of formulas built in, whereas if you just enter that data in 2 of the columns, that will, based on the formula, will give that to you as well. But it would be nice to know your conversion rate, because if your conversion rate is very low, I would say to you, you need to talk to me about how you're selling. Are you doing a pre-construction agreement, or are you quoting for every human that walks into your world and asks you for a quote? Because that is going to destroy your conversion rate as well. So, you want to make sure that you're able to, you have a sales process. And that's something that we could probably cover off later on. If you've got any questions about that, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com, or hit me up and DM. If you want to DM me, can we DM on TikTok, mate? Is there a DM on TikTok? Yeah, you can send me a message. Get across to TikTok. We have a bit of fun over there. Not quite as serious, but any way you can. If you want to get at me, I'm happy to just have a quick chat with you. And I think on my elitebusinessadvisory.com website, there's a 604 number, which is my WhatsApp number. If you want to try it on, maybe hit me up for a call and I might answer your call. We'll see what happens. If I'm available and you've picked the right time zone, maybe we can have a quick chat as well. Be happy to do that. Righto. Now, so if our conversion rate is 20%, we're looking at our forecast build values, and we're looking at our lead numbers, and we're looking at our conversion rates and our contract values and our numbers. That really takes us away from the sales component. Now we're getting into monitoring the hardcore metrics of your business. And so we're just going to finish off with, we're going to talk quickly just to round up on your fixed expenses and your monthly break-even point. So your fixed expense, and I'm going to cover this off in a separate episode down the track, because, we've got a little bit of a conflicting understanding about, okay, Max, I've got 3 guys on payroll. They're carpenters. They do all the carpentry work. Is that a cost of goods sold, or do they fall under my fixed expense or my operational expenses? Okay. So I'm going to talk about that probably in a couple of episodes from now. Probably if I forecast episode 184 is probably what I'm going to do that. And so, I want to help you with establishing and understanding. A lot of guys, if I say, hey, what is your fixed expense? I don't know that I've ever had, maybe I've had one that have said, oh, Max, categorically, my fixed expense is this. That includes my wage at a very much an industry standard. This is my fixed expense. It's $8,475 per month, or it's $12,700 a month. Most guys don't ever stand still and go, what is my fixed expense? And I'll tell you why, is because nobody tells them that they need to know that. Well, I'm here doing that today. I'm saying you need to know what your fixed expense is. So starting at the top, you're the director of your company, your wage needs to be included. Now, if you go out on site and do some work, what you're doing is double dipping. You are picking up the cost of goods sold for carpentry labor over there, and you're also picking up the markup profit, which is good. Problem with that is you can't build a business beyond probably 300,000 or 400,000 by you being on the tools as a cost of goods sold, running the company as well. So just a quick note to self. So really our fixed expenses are everything it takes to run the business, insurances, gas, cell phones, internet, memberships, all kinds of anything that's unrelated to what happens on site, anything, materials and labor that it takes to deliver that end product. That is a cost of goods sold. What we're talking about in fixed expenses is what it takes to run your business. So, side note, guys that go and buy fancy trucks, if we ever get a chance to sit down and I can show you, and I literally have done that this week with one of my elite business clients, I've showed this general contract, said, if you go and purchase that truck and you take on $1,000, these were the numbers, $1,000, if I can remember them accurately, $1,000 truck lease or truck repayment, and your break-even point is $19,000 today. By adding that $1,000 overhead, your break-even point now is $24,500. It jumps massively. Not to mention, it now makes it harder to actually invoice at our preferred monthly billables to ensure that you're creating a 10% net profit at the end of the year. So guys and gals, please understand that everything that you do, that you accrue in the way of an overhead, whether that is a lease on a truck or whether that's a human being that comes into your business that's not a cost of goods sold, essentially, that does put back pressure on the amount of profit that you've got to generate per month just to break even. So let's say, for instance, when you pay yourself and all of your running costs associated with the business, not including the materials and labor for specific jobs or individual projects, was $10,000 a month. We calculate now, this is where it also comes into an understanding. You've got to understand what your profit margin percentage is. So I don't really want to get talking about markup and margin, but if you're not familiar with markup and margin, okay, if you take $100 worth of lumber or timber, depending on which country you're in, $100, and you mark that up by 43%, the sale value of that lumber will be $143. But if you calculate the profit, i.e. the $43 of the overall $143 sale value, that will form 30% of $143. If you don't get that, which wouldn't surprise me because most guys have a struggle. I'm like, Max, why are you using two percentages? Well, because I'm putting a markup on a smaller amount to get the appropriate amount of margin. That is why that the margin is 30% and the markup is 43%. If you want to have a chat about that, email me, book me for a strategy session, and I can dive deeper into that with you. But if what we've got to establish is what is your margin percentage? What's your profit margin? So if you're like us and marking up at 43% and establishing an appropriate profit margin of 28 to 30 is definitely where you want to be. Anything less than that, and you're making life more difficult for your marketing, your advertising, your lead generation, your advertising spend, it means you've got to bill for more per month. Guys, you've got to price jobs for profit that's appropriate for your business as well. But what we do is we take our fixed expense of $10,000 and we divide it by our profit margin percentage. So let's say in our scenario, you've got $10,000, you divide that by the 30% markup, you end up with a break-even point of $33,333.33. Okay, so what that means is that for you just to cover your cost of goods sold, in other words, materials and labor for that invoice, okay? And I might just deviate real quick before I shut this episode down, which I'm going to do shortly. You've got to actually bill for or receive or get paid $33,000 just to pay your wage, your running costs of the business, and the cost of goods sold, i.e. materials and labor. You are not creating a net profit. You are going to get to the end of the year and make no money. You're going to go, I just pulled a wage. That's it. Now, guys that are doing $500,000 a year, that is all your business is going to give to you. You are not going to be creating a nest egg or a profit that you are essentially going to then pay tax on, and then that will create some operational capital going forward for your business. You're just not doing it. So just on that note, if you've got any questions about that between markup and margin, remember, markup is the activity, it's the action. Margin is the result, okay? Rewind it. Go again, have another listen to it, get your calculator out, have a play with it, $100, mark up by 43, and then go 30% off $143. I guarantee it's going to be around about $43, okay? So this is the concepts that I'm trying to, really dispel or at least bring to your awareness. Let's get started with that. And then you go, oh, I kind of get it, but I don't get it, and I don't understand what he's banging on about. Well, then we've got to get some education in place, okay? So the first 3 months when I'm dealing with new clients, a lot of the time I've got to break through some of these inhibitions where they're like, I don't understand that. I don't know why you're doing that. And so I've got to break down those walls or break through those ceilings with my clients to make sure that they are understanding these concepts, which have such a massive, they have a massive impact on the business's bottom line. Just so you know too, I want to be clear that the next thing, we're going to round out here pretty quickly, but the at some point in the future, whether you're on this podcast, and I don't even think I'd cover it on a podcast because it's just too complicated. I've got financial administrators that have a hard time getting their head around it, but it's, work in progress accounting, over under billings. Guys, what we're trying to do with that, that system, the work in progress accounting, which is a manufacturing which is really for the manufacturing world. What we're trying to do is understand what our level of liability is in our business. So we might have $400,000 in the bank. Of that $400,000, how much of that can I use to run my business? Guys, just to make it really simple, okay? Follow me as I close out this episode. If you receive a check from a client in any time, if you receive a $100,000 check, let's go smaller. If you receive a $10,000 check from a client, and you are marking up by 43%, okay, which is creating a 30% profit margin. What that means is, of that $10,000, 30% or $3,000 is what you can use to run your business, okay? So what I'm going to encourage you to consider is that you have your operational bank account. You have maybe a small credit card associated with that company account. You'd also have a tax savings account for the company income tax and the GST, okay? The other account that I've been recommending lately is what I would call the vendor account, okay? So of that $10,000, $3,000 of that is yours. That's your gross profit, which if you're not doing enough revenue, you're probably going to spend all of it on running your business. There's nothing going to be left over, so you kind of live in hand to mouth, month to month, which is not cool. But that $7,000, I want you to put that into your vendor bank account, okay? Guys, I'd love to know what you think about this, because what we've got to get away from is not knowing at any one point how much money that I've collected from clients that is in my bank account that that I need to distribute to suppliers and subcontractors. Guys, set that one bank account up. Maybe it'll have a checkbook associated with it, and you can write checks out of that account, or you can do digital electronic transfers out of that account, just like your other accounts. But I'm really saying this out of a position whereby, guys, if you're not going to run your business properly and you're going to go broke, which I wish that you would not do, but the stats are that 50% of builders and general contractors will go broke in the first 5 years. I would love it if you could just pay out all your all of your subcontractors and your suppliers. Because why is it that your problems become their problems? Your lack of ability in financial management should not be their problem, but it does. The shit trickles downhill, and these guys and gals get caught up in the failure of the builder, and it's been happening forever. Okay, so what I'm asking you to be is financially responsible. That's what I'm asking you to do, and I want you to do that. I want you to consider, go and get some advice. Go to your financial advisor, maybe even go to your accountant. Okay, go and have a chat with the two esteemed counterparts that you have or associates to your business, and ask them about that. Go, hey, this crazy guy, he recommended I have a vendor account, so every time I get $10,000, because I'm marking up by 43%, just like he said, and it leaves me with a 30% profit margin. If I get a $10,000 check, he wants me to leave 3 in my operations account and put 7 into a vendor bank account, and put the GST aside as well into the other account. What do you think about that? I'd love your feedback, even if you've just had a moment in time right now where you've gone, mate, you know what? That would actually help me sleep at night, because then I would know exactly what is mine and what is being set aside. Now, if you were super tricky, you could have a vendor account for every single project. And that means you wouldn't have an overlap between projects. But if you're doing 5 jobs at a time, you're going to have a few bank accounts going. So again, consider your situation. However, setting 5 bank accounts up, if it gets you the sleep at night factor is up there, and it means you can you can control that because you put in the appropriate buckets, the finance that you've been entrusted with, then I think you'll be streets ahead, and you will avoid that 50% failure rate. Okay. So guys and girls, if you've got any questions, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com. If you want to chat with me individually about what it takes to be an elite business client, where you receive some customized coaching for contractors, then jump on, book a consultation. If you can't find a spot there, email me, max@elitebusinessadvisory.com, and I'll make some space for you, and we'll get amongst it on a strategy session. Get across to Business for Builders, VIP, answer the 3 questions. If you're a good sort, I'll let you in. Like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Go build a kick-ass business. See you in the next episode. Cheers.